Okay, so hi everyone. Today for my YouTube channel, I thought that I would compile a couple of videos that I have filmed for my Patreon and turn them into just a couple of tips and tricks on how I do each part of my tutorial. So the parts that I focus on are leather, a horse's hair, metalwork, and also a horse's nose. And this certain video is going to be focusing on the horse's hair and just a couple of tips and things that I watch out for and try and do in my drawing to try and achieve a realistic look to them. Alright, so let's just get on right into tip 1. So my first tip is actually looking at the length of the fur in your reference. So the way I look at it is if you compare a German Shepherd, for example, to a poodle, to something like a pug, okay? So all three have very, very different hair types. A German Shepherd, or a long-haired German Shepherd, should I say, has very poofy, fluffy fur, and the actual length of the fur is quite long. Comparing that to a poodle is obviously very curly, very like tight curls in their fur, and once again they're quite long but in a totally different way, as in they are very long curls. And then comparing that to a pug's fur, I don't know if long-haired pugs exist, but short-haired pugs, obviously their hair is very short and therefore the actual hairs in their coat are very short. So when you look at your reference, really make sure to take notice of how long your strokes need to be when drawing the individual furs, because obviously it can look anything from like German Shepherd, long fluffy, to short, you know, a short coat. So my second tip goes on quite nicely to the first one, and that is to look at the direction of the fur. So especially when you get to quite detailed areas such as like maybe a face or a leg or something like that, the direction of the fur will change quite a lot. So when you obviously get to like a dog's snout, then you need to really take notice of the direction of the fur to create that look, as in the snout is 3D, I suppose. Because if you make the whole thing just one fur direction, it will, it won't create that 3D effect, especially if you're aiming for realistic drawings. The fur on the snout actually goes up along the very top of the snout towards the eyes, and then it kind of goes down each way towards obviously the mouth. If that made any sense, I have no idea. So yeah, keeping an eye on the length and direction of the fur are the biggest tips I have when drawing fur. Not even horse fur, I mean obviously that applies as well, but dogs, cats, anything that has fluff on it, or not fluff, just fur. Okay, so my third tip, and a tip that a lot of artists will tell you when trying to make realistic portraits, is layering. So this is a really, really important thing, especially on the paper that I personally use, which is Pastelmat by Clairefontaine. It is a very toothy paper, and you can kind of see in the tutorial how it takes up so many layers to fill that tooth. Obviously you can burnish the paper, which is pressing really hard and just filling the tooth with one colour. However, I find that making layers and bringing the layers up with your drawing using really light pressure will create such like a nice soft effect to your drawings, and it will really enhance the realisticness of it. So along with that is building up colours, obviously. I know that a lot of fur coats obviously aren't just one colour, and what I try and do, I don't really know how I can explain it apart from the fact that I look at the base colour, almost the colour underneath the fur and the colour that is on the skin, and I'll start with that and then build up to the different fur colours. And so different animals have different amounts of colour in their fur. So obviously you can have maybe like, I don't know, a black Labrador, which is obviously black. And for that I would probably use a range of colours, being maybe like black, blue, purple and grey, probably something like that. Whereas you can then get a dog that has a brindle type of coat, which is loads and loads and loads of colours. Normally, you know, it can vary from black to brown to like an orangey rust colour to like a cream to a white, you know, so many colours. And so doing this technique of layering with really light pressure and doing quite a good amount of layers to fill that tooth is really, really helpful. Okay, so my fourth tip is do not rush. So I try and pay as much attention to what I'm actually doing as possible to each section of the fur. I find that sometimes if you know, try and rush it a bit much, then you get a bit bored. But if you try and really fall in love with drawing the fur itself and really pay attention to what you're doing, what colours you're using, and everything like that, then it can become a really, really enjoyable experience. What I tend to do, especially on like bigger pieces, is split it up into sections. And for this certain tutorial, it was quite easy because it was almost sectioned off by the nose band and everything on the horse. And I know artists have obviously different ways of working. Some of them work on sections and finish them, which is personally what I normally do. Or sometimes other artists will bring the whole drawing to the same level as they go through and, you know, work on the whole drawing as a like one piece. But that's totally personal preference. But yeah, I just think really spending time and falling in love with the actual fur, because it can be quite a tedious thing. You know, you are drawing thousands of little tiny hairs, maybe not that, maybe hundreds, I don't know, but loads and loads of really tiny little hairs, and it can become tedious. So, you know, just really focus on what you're doing and pay attention. So tip 5 is another really, really big one, I find anyway, and that is creating contrast in your fur. So for this horse tutorial I did, the fur colour was actually a really, really vivid orange. However, because it was taken in direct sunlight, I'm thinking even maybe like a sunset kind of light, it had some really, really dark shadows on it as well, along with some really, really light highlights. And I really wanted to make that very apparent in my drawing, because I find that contrast can really elevate the look of your drawing and, you know, how realistic it does look. So you want to build contrast in the layers as well as actual in the sections of the fur, I suppose. And so that would include looking at the really kind of light hairs that are highlighted in the fur, along with the really kind of shadowed darker sections, maybe, you know, in a literal shadow or something like that. Okay, and my 6th and final tip is to create vibrancy in your fur. So once again, it is really, really easy to have a, I don't know, like a brown horse, for example, and think, okay, all I need to use is browns. Like, it's kind of, you know, a bit self-explanatory. But I have made my mindset not think that. So automatically now, when I look at any animal photo or like reference photo or anything, I look at not what the like apparent colour is in it, but the little other colours that are hidden within it as well. So for example, as I said, this is a really orange, vibrant horse coat, but I really, really wanted to bring out some really, really deep reds and really deep purples, because they complement with the orange so well. And if it's taken as a photo, some of these colours won't be like automatically apparent to you, and that's kind of when you have to kind of think and, you know, use your knowledge on what you think would look good. So for example, grey fur isn't always grey. Like, you can add purples in it, you could add browns, you could add really dark like blacks, like there's a whole host of colours you can add. And as I said, orange fur, I really wanted to use really deep reds and really deep oranges and really deep purples, and that, you know, just complemented it so, so well. And then black fur, obviously a black, you know, black dog or a black horse can be quite hard to draw because they just look so flat. However, if you bring out some of the highlights or mid-tones with, you know, maybe like a dark indigo blue or something, or a purple, then it can just really, like, I keep thinking I'm saying this a lot, but just elevate the drawing and just make some real interest into it and vibrancy. So they are the 6 tips that I have for fur. I mean, all of them apply to horse hair as well. I'm just kind of, you know, going along any type of fur or hair. I mean, even human hair, that would work as well. So yeah, as I mentioned, I have a Patreon, and that includes a monthly fee of £3 a month. And for that you will get loads of exclusive videos and tutorials from me, which will include this 7+ hour horse tutorial. I'd be so grateful if you could go and have a look, and even more grateful if you would consider supporting me and my business. So I hope you have a lovely day whatever you're up to, and I will hopefully see you soon. Goodbye.